Wait for it. Man, that little 20 grain bullet certainly does a number in them crows. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, hey. So, welcome to the channel, and I hope I find you all in good health and strength. And if you haven't guessed it by now, I'm out after the hooded crows again. Now, I haven't been up here after the hooded crows since the end of the lambing season, late spring. So I was hoping that there would be a good few up here. Although there is no lambs up here at the minute, there still is sheep. And unlike the farmer, I personally haven't seen any live lambs attacked with crows, just the dead ones lying in the field with their eyes pecked out. But I have seen live, full-grown sheep lying with their eyes pecked out and their faces all scratched up. Because if these sheep roll onto their back when they're heavily pregnant, they can get stuck there like an upside down turtle, which I've seen plenty of times. Or if they're sick and can't get to their feet to defend themselves, that's when the hooded crows move in, and they go for the soft spots, the eyes, the tongue and the anus, which is not a pretty sight. So even though the lambs aren't here just yet, the farmer likes me to keep the numbers down. And that, in a long-winded way, brings me till this morning. And for those of you who've watched my other videos will probably recognise this spot. It's a favourite of mine. It's a little overgrown garden in the corner of a field that I like setting the hide up in. And it actually helps give you a good bit of shelter from the wind as well, which there seems to be plenty of this morning. But I finally have the hide built, and I have my bait out, which is a dead rabbit split open to look as if something was eating it and abandoned it. I don't have any dead crows I can use for decoys, but the morning's early. The rifle I have with me today is my CZ527 Varmint in 17 Hornet, which I've bedded into a form laminate stock. And I also have a Wildcat Panther moderator up front, and the scope is a Meopta 4-16x44 tactical, which I have a Tacticam 5.0 and FTS unit to film through the scope. Years ago I used to bring the 2.2 rimfire and subsonics up here, but as you can hear it can be quite windy up here. But now I much prefer to bring the 17 Hornet, which is not a rimfire round, it's a centerfire round based off the 2.2 Hornet case. I've only been sitting about 10 minutes when two magpies appeared. Now I can shoot them as well as the hooded crows under protection of livestock, but I decided to let them be and use them as live decoys to hopefully bring down a hooded crow. Very tempting it was, but the problem I have at the minute is the sheep. I didn't realise there was sheep in this field till I arrived this morning, and they are powerful at getting in the road, as you'll see. Now I could have set up in one of the other fields, but there's supposed to be cattle about here, and I didn't really want to be sitting in the hide when the big Hereford bull walked up and stuck his head through the window just to see what the crack was. After sitting some 2.5 hours, the temptation to take one of those two magpies was getting very irresistible, let's say, as they were still feeding on and off. That is until a hooded crow just dropped in out of nowhere and landed in one of the trees to my right hand side. Then promptly flew off and landed in the tree on the left hand side, overlooking the bait. Very tempting, but there's no safe backstop and I'm using a centerfire rifle, so I have to wait till he's on the ground. And thankfully after a few minutes, that's exactly what it did, pushing the two magpies off the rabbit in the process. Remember what I said about the sheep? Yep, 3 of them's lay down in the foreground, but they're bedded down and still, and there should be more than enough room for a safe shot above them, even allowing for the fact the centre of the bore is 2 inches lower than the centre of the scope. Well, that's the first one down, but boy, that was a long wait. I was pretty hopeful at this point I would get a shot at one of those magpies, as I could hear them chittering away in the background. But unfortunately, that's all they ever did, and never come back into view again. After about 15-20 minutes, a second hooded crow appeared, soaring back and forth in the wind, and the way it was lining up, I really thought I was going to get a second opportunity pretty quickly. But unfortunately, that's all I ever did, before catching the wind again and disappearing out of sight just as quietly as it arrived. So thinking that the bird I just shot was lying in an awkward shape and just put the other bird off from landing, I nipped out and set it up as a decoy with the little wire cradle that I use. Now, after the initial disturbance of me running up the field, the sheep had moved down to the bottom end of the field, which was bliss. But before long, once things settled, they were very quick to come back up to the top of the field to see what I was up to. This is why I don't like setting decoys out in a field with livestock in it. They just won't leave it alone. They're just so curious. Take this out tanker for example. She must have stood there stock still for 5-10 minutes, almost as if she was having a staring competition with a dead crow. And the best of it was, I think she was winning. Do you think crows can actually hypnotize sheep? Another hour and a half painstakingly ticked by before 2 more hooded crows appeared and landed in the tree to the left, overlooking the bait and the decoy. One of which was very aggressive and quickly dropped down on top of one of the fence posts overlooking the decoy. But I only just got the camera onto it before it flew off into the tree again. Thankfully, it didn't stay there for long and quickly dropped down onto the fence post again. I know it's only about 80 yards, but the wind didn't seem to affect the little 17 Hornet. Well, that's the second bird down. I did nip out and set the two shot birds up as if they were fighting each other, hoping to draw another one down. But even after another hour and a half of waiting, it didn't happen. So I decided to call it a day and pack up. Well, that was a long wait for two crows. I've shot a lot more than that on this wee spot before. I shot up to 10 in one morning, but this is just one of the mornings things didn't go to plan. Sheep in this field this morning. Didn't realise there was sheep here, and they kept getting in the way, but thankfully I managed to get something, got a clear safe shot. There is other fields here, but there's cattle in them, and I didn't want to bump into the bull by accident, so as I decided to set up here, at least if the birds land in the fence post, I've got a clean, clear shot. But set out the dead rabbit for bait this morning, waited about, 2.5 hours, and finally got the first bird, which is the one on the bottom. And then an hour and a half later, I shot that bird. There was a couple of magpies knocking about, and I honestly thought they would come back again, but nope, not after the first bird was shot. They cleared off. But at least we got something for my efforts and a wee bit of footage, so that's always a plus. Anyway, cheer bye folks. I always like tidying the place up before I go, but at least now I have got decoys for another day. Well folks, I'm sorry there hasn't been much fresh content uploaded to the channels last while, and that this for a start was quite a meagre offering, but at least the farmer was quite thankful of my efforts, as 2 crows is better than nothing. But now we're into the colder autumn and winter months, I should be hitting the crows and magpies more often. But until then, take care and look after yourselves, hey.